Welcome to our conversation, Inspiring Inclusion, a special conversation for International Women's Day. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Sarangelo. I'm the president and CEO of Points of Light. We are the largest global network of voluntary organizations in the world, and our mission is to inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world. Today, we're going to talk about inspiring and equipping women and girls for leadership and change making on the global stage. We know all of us know there are many systemic barriers, economic, political, opportunity barriers for women as they seek to make an impact in the workplace, in civil society, economically, and politically. So today we're going to talk about much of the progress that has been made, but we know there is much work left to do. So thank you so much for joining us. And I know that we all have a role to play in ensuring that women can really reach their full potential for our society and our world. And so we really want to welcome today the men who have joined us. We know you are a very important part of being allies for women in your life. So welcome, especially to you. And we want to welcome all of you from around the world. So it's my pleasure to introduce my guest today for this inspiring, what we hope will be and know will be an inspiring conversation. I'm very excited to introduce them to you today. First is Pam Everhart, who is Senior Vice President, Regional Public Affairs, Inclusion, and Impact at Fidelity Investments. Pam oversees Fidelity's state and local government relationships, public affairs, inclusion, impact at its Boston headquarters and across Fidelity regions in the United States, India, and Ireland. Pam is one of the 19 Massachusetts Black and Brown executives who launched the new Commonwealth Racial Equity and Social Justice Fund to help drive transformative social changes to address systemic racism and racial inequity, and was appointed by the Boston mayor as a steering committee member of the Boston Racial Equity Fund. Pam is active in several community service organizations and sits on several nonprofit boards, including Points of Light. Welcome, Pam. I'm also pleased to introduce R.T. Madhusian, who is Principal Consultant for I Volunteer India, a Points of Light Global Network affiliate. She is founder of Governance Counts, an initiative that strengthens nonprofit boards. She is the co-founder of the first ever 100 Women on Boards program that this year will have trained 100 corporate professionals to become board ready. She's passionate about volunteering and spends time each year with her friends in rural India, strengthening the capacity of community organizations in rural India. RT sits on the Points of Light Affiliate Assembly, which is our global leadership body. Welcome, RT. So happy to have you both here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to begin, let me ask a question of you both, and maybe we can start with you, RT, but I'll ask it of you both. So Pam, you next. And just wanted to ask if there is one or more women's rights movement or women's empowerment movement that particularly resonates or deeply affects you and how it might have motivated you in your career. RT, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. To be honest, I have been motivated by women from everyday life all the time, and I continue to draw inspiration from the women I see around me. But very specifically, one of the movements or organizations that inspired me as I started out my career was this one called Mahila Samakhya, which essentially translates into education for empowerment of women. Partly run by the government of India back then, it continues to be one of the largest programs in the country that's looking at how women can be empowered through information and education. I started my career with them. But to be honest, Jennifer, I mean, every day is new learning, and every day I come across the smartest, brightest, the bravest, and the most courageous of women who are not making it to newspapers and journal articles, but they're there around me. So
Amazing. Pam, how about you?
Thank you, Jennifer, and I'm so happy to be on this panel with RT. I love what she's been doing and all of the leadership that she's exhibited. I'd say for me, I'm most profoundly impacted by the women's suffrage movement. And I mention it today particularly because I'm from Massachusetts and it's March 4th, Super Tuesday. So I'd say that because this movement gave women in the U.S. the right to vote, it's so important. And particularly me in my day job, as you mentioned, I lead Fidelity's state and local government relations team. So policy and politics is just a part of my everyday. And what's important is that I get to see how the sausage is made and by whom, right? So I feel that voting is such a precious right that we have. And unfortunately, not everyone takes advantage of it. But I strongly believe, regardless of your political affiliation or your views, it's important, particularly for women, to exercise that right. So we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and many women work tirelessly to ensure that we have the right to vote. So I think it's critical that we do our part to honor that legacy. I believe if we want to drive transformative change for ourselves, our family, our communities, and even the country, then exercise your right to vote. That's step one. And I'm also, Jennifer, I don't know if you know this organization, Generation Citizen. It's based in New York, but it's a national organization. What they do is they give young people inspiration and tools to equip them to engage in democracy. They want to make sure that they understand that civics is important and you just cannot stand on the sidelines. And they do it through debates. They visit state houses. They engage with policymakers. But it's so important, I believe, to start young so you understand and believe that, one person, right, collectively the ones can really make a difference. And with everything going on in our nation and the world today, when women have that opportunity to stand up, right, and speak through their voice via the vote, the ballot, I just think they should do so.
Well, Pam, thank you so much. This is a unique American day today is a day to vote in the United States. And I couldn't agree with you more. And Pam, I don't know if you saw, but there are a number of people giving you a thumbs up for absolutely using our voice. Like you, Pam, I'm also motivated by that movement. I learned really after college a little bit more about in the United States what the women, the extreme sacrifices they made for us to be able to vote, and so I agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more. And Pam, you also know, for me personally, I've just left a 25-year career in positive youth development, so I'm thrilled to hear about Generation Citizen. And there are so many organizations that are equipping young people, especially young women, to use their voice. So we want to encourage them, and all of us as in our circle and sphere of influence. How can we support those organizations and mentor those young women? Not only to vote, which is the principle and basic, but to engage and to become active. So I'm thrilled to hear about that program, and I know there are many more that many of us are involved in, and let's encourage ourselves to keep that up. So let me just share a few statistics to frame the next few questions that we're going to talk about regarding some of the persistent challenges and the systemic change that we want to see in the social impact sector. So first, let me begin that, the one of the latest statistics that's really, there's a few that are really upsetting me that I wanted to bring forward in today's conversation. And first is that women globally account for about 42% of the global workforce in 2023. Yet women in senior leadership roles dropped by 10% to only 32% in global leadership roles. This is according to the World Economic Forum's recent global gender gap report. And this is alarming, and with so much progress that we've made. And in the NGO, the non-governmental organization in the US, the nonprofit sector, in the United States, women make up 75% of nonprofit employees, but only 22% of nonprofits are run by women executive directors or CEOs. And only 42% of nonprofit boards are led by women. Although we've made progress there, I will say that is one of the numbers that I'm pleased to see. So that's just a little bit of framing, and those are recent statistics. This is not old news. And despite all of our progress, we still have more work to do. So, RT, let me ask you, ask you for some insights. You co-founded the 100 Women on Boards with some incredible partners to train corporate professionals to be board ready. Can you talk a bit about why you're so passionate about this and the important role that women can play on boards?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I mean, I want to segue from what you just said about the statistics. They aren't very different in India either, right? So we do have women founders who will probably be the majority in terms of organizations that are being founded and run in the impact sector. But as you go up that leadership ladder, you find the number begins to become smaller. And at the board level, it isn't what it should be or can be. And so my view was, how do we get more of these women who are out there? I mean, the good news is that we are making progress. There are more women in the corporate sector. There are more women professionals. That number is increasing every day, to be honest. So that's the good news. But beyond the regular work that they do, the regular day job, is there a way to inspire more of them to give more time, bringing the qualities that they take to their work, the leadership that they brought at their workplace to the nonprofit sector? Now, there's enough evidence in business to say that women in boardrooms are leading to better outcomes. This becomes even more important in the impact sector because you need better outcomes for the communities that you're working with, where women are facing the brunt of all vulnerabilities. So whether it's health or nutrition, education, violence, right? So you need more women in the boardroom who are enabling decisions with empathy, with intelligence, with the ability to mix and marry the different variables, work in diversity, so that the communities that these nonprofits are serving can get faster, better, more efficient decision making that will help them. So that really was the inspiration. We did a research study and we reached out to more than 100 nonprofits in India, all of them saying, yes, we need more women. Where are they? Right? And I had the good fortune to do this with two organizations, the Indian School for Development Management and DASRA, both of which are very stellar organizations in the country, who said, okay, we'll give you the institutional framework and all the support that you need. Let's go out there and do it. What's even more interesting is that, so this was it's a cohort-based program. We wanted to get to 100. It was an application process program. For every cohort, we had 3 times the number of women apply for this, which is very heartening, right? It's fantastic. And so we're going to do 2 more. Yeah, it's fantastic. So this year, we're going to do 2 more of those cohorts. You'll get 50 more, but we want to work on ensuring that stickiness and that the women are able to deliver on the role with more confidence and, talent.
Thank you. It's so inspiring. And RT, we're seeing some of the folks who have been, the ladies who have been in your work are noting that in our chat. So we're so happy you're here. So Pam, I wanted to turn to you and ask for you to share a little bit about your very relevant experience in Boston. You're one of the Black and Brown executives who launched the new Commonwealth Equity Fund, and you've also been on the steering committee of the Boston Racial Equity Fund. So would love to hear from you about what the systemic work that you see happening at the city and state level with the organizations you're working with. How do these changes drive opportunities for women?
Yeah. So thank you. I'll just say to start off that both the New Commonwealth Racial Equity and Social Justice Fund and the Boston Racial Equity Fund came about in the throes of COVID-19. And then also following the murder of George Floyd. Because during this time, a lot of the inequities faced by people of color, particularly women, because they were the essential workers, caregivers. So a lot of the challenges that they were going through were amplified. I mean, we always knew they were there, but then we saw them in living color, if you will, right? So as these 19 Black and Brown leaders came together, we were wondering, like, what can we do to support organizations that are closest to the pain in these communities? And as we were doing our research, because everything is data driven, we found that only 2% of all of the funding to nonprofits in Massachusetts, and there's a lot of funding coming out of Massachusetts, but only 2% of the funding were going to nonprofits led by people of color. And many of those were women. So we wanted to do something that would be helpful. So we started this fund to help shore up those organizations. And we focused on things like healthcare, going back to things that are important to women and where we're involved a lot. Economic empowerment, particularly for women who wanted to have businesses. And then going back to youth education and civic engagement were a few of the pillars. And so we wanted to take a different approach to funding. And so we decided to focus on trust-based grant giving. You probably know about that, Jennifer, right? And R2, because oftentimes you have these organizations who are trying to do the work and they don't have the staff or sometimes the resources to put together all of this information that's needed or that's requested from big grant makers to provide grants because they are doing the day-to-day work. So we had conversations with people in the community. We listened to what they were doing. We learned a lot, and then we took action. And we wanted to do capacity building. You have to start somewhere with these groups so they could be able to scale. And then finally, we thought that we needed to support the ecosystem of organizations, in that same, focusing on those same things so that they could share just by bringing nonprofits together so they could talk. So we were a convener. And we wanted them to focus on what are the outcomes that are most important to their communities. And I wanted to make sure that women were at the table and that we as an organization of 19 executives, we were able to share our agency to drive opportunities for women. So that's the work that I'm doing and continue to do across Massachusetts and in Boston. And in my role at Fidelity, I support communities across the US and in India. As you know, I have responsibility for that. And so I want to continue to highlight and focus on those organizations led by women, particularly those that are underfunded, and make sure they have not only the money, but Jennifer, another important thing is just the skills-based. Right? Because money is not everything. I mean, you can get a big grant, but if you don't have the skill set, right, to manage that budget, then it can be a little challenging. So it's I want to make sure that we're thinking about what are the greatest needs of women who are running nonprofits and how we could be helpful.
Well, I love what both of you have shared about these systemic barriers that you're working on. It's so inspiring. I'm ready to get up and jump up and down. You had me at trust-based, Pam. But RT, just thinking about it, the barrier of kind of opportunity and education that you are breaking down, and Pam, that those barriers of those systemic barriers in the fight, and really in some of the capital flow into the nonprofit sector regarding what talent's available, the capacity that's there. So I love hearing about trust-based philanthropy, which for those folks that may not know what that means is, as Pam said, it's really designed to, trust-based philanthropy is designed to be based on trust in leadership. I truly trust in the board leadership and the executive leadership of an organization, and investing in their vision and their plan rather than sort of a backward look at what have they done, what will we fund if they do it. But it's really designed to move to solutions more quickly. And that's why I think that's why you did that, Pam, during COVID. It's because quick was important and leadership was important, and those barriers, you wanted to break them down. And so I love what both of you are doing. And what's awesome is that it's sustainable. This has been going on for a number of years, and you have even more. And RT, I hope that you never have a waiting list for that. For folks that I'm just glad you're going to have more cohorts soon. So I wanted to ask you, Pam, while we're talking a little bit about that capital flow that's so important, especially for nonprofit organizations, and something we don't talk about enough, I think. And in fact, women, it's one of the things I talk about with women, is not to be afraid of the money. The money is the power. The money is how impact is made. Sometimes I think we want to shy away from that, but we're going to talk about it today. And so, Pam, last year, Fidelity committed 250 million US dollars to education and support for 50,000 BIPOC and historically underserved students across the US. Tell me more about the importance of this investment, especially for girls in underserved communities.
Sure. So, Jennifer, you're talking about our Invest in My Education initiative.
Yes.
And for short, we call it Invest in Me. And that's the message that we wanted to give to underserved students, particularly women, that it is important that people see them as valued and we want to invest in them. So this investment is in terms of scholarships, not only just the scholarships, but more equally important, the wraparound support that we thought that students will need. So we will, the goal is to ensure that they graduate from college with no debt. And we're also providing to them mentoring. Each one of them will have a one-on-one mentor, college success coaches, financial education. And another important thing that we thought was important as we organized this scholarship program, because we wanted it to be a little different than others, we are providing mental health support. And particularly, I feel, and I have a daughter who's in college, and I just tell you what young girls go through. And particularly, I'd say starting in middle school, and with technology and all of this, and just the things that are causing them sometimes to doubt themselves, that mental health piece is so important. And so we're providing that as well. We're also going back to this ecosystem piece that we're doing with the New Commonwealth Fund. We wanted to do that as well. So in terms of the $250 million, we have scholarships, the wraparound support. We're also providing ecosystem grants to leading nonprofit organizations who are focused on the pathway from high school to college to good paying jobs. and particularly women as well. So we started this year in last year, we had 200 scholars in our program. We're going to expand another 450 in 2024 to get up to 650 for this year. Over the course of the program, we hope to get up to 2,500 direct scholarships, but through scaling and through our support of nonprofit organizations, we hope to impact 50,000 students. The majority of the scholars just happen to be young girls because their applications were just stellar. I mean, we have some men in there, and they were good too, but these young girls had some incredible stories around the systemic barriers that could have prevented them from moving into college. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I might mention that Fidelity is doing is that we're focusing on women and finances. So we have a program called Women Talk Money. And it's really a community of women by women where you can be just candid in terms of your confidence around money or lack thereof, right? And we talk about the pay gaps, investing gaps, caregiving, and that invisible labor, right? That women do every day, but it's not necessarily always counted, right? And so we wanted to make sure that these women and their voices are being heard. And so that's just some of the things that I'm excited to be a part of and a way to drive change. And another one thing I just mentioned in terms of young women, high school and college, we're also offering a program that's focused on their careers if they're interested in money, so in asset management. And so we bring young high school girls into Fidelity so they can explore financial services and take a peek and see if this is something that they would like to do. And we help them identify their strengths, discover their passions, set their path, and then find their purpose in life.
Pam, it's so exciting to hear so many of the barrier breaking, the things you all are doing to try to address the systemic issues. And I saw a lot of excitement around, and I'm going to be thinking about this too as one of the goals, the no debt. Being in youth development for so long prior to being at Points of Light, that, really we were focused on, graduating and getting the degree. But it's very important that we add that part to it. But it's so exciting to hear the different, you've identified some of the barriers, and you all are designing around that to find good solutions that can be scaled even by other companies and partners as well. We can learn from them, which is great. Well, let me just move. RT, I want to transition to you for a moment and ask if you could share with us some of the trends that iVolunteer is seeing with women volunteering in India, and what new areas of focus are emerging that you're seeing in India.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. I mean, at iVolunteer, we are a platform for others who don't know, where volunteers can sign up to volunteer with nonprofits that have needs, but we also going out there and reaching out to more young girls and women to become volunteers themselves. And we are finding some really remarkable trends. One is that just a level of enthusiasm, right? To go out there and do something that's different, that's considered extra, very high amongst young girls. I mean, they want to get out there, do what they can, own the space. They end up being more confident. And this is the thing, right? I mean, I find that women in general, and this is a generalization, but I think it's there for a reason. We don't own our successes and spaces loudly enough, right? We're always sort of shy and a little inhibited in terms of saying what is it that we are doing and are capable of doing. And I think volunteering provides a wonderful opportunity for women to go out there and just be those really supremely confident people that they can be. So there is a lot of investment from the team in reaching out to younger girls who can volunteer with an increasing emphasis on reflecting on how that volunteering is actually nurturing and changing their own personalities to become more confident human beings. And be really wonderful role models, because the thing is that the systemic stuff around isn't keeping pace, right? I mean, of course there's change happening, and there is a lot more opportunity, there's a lot more recognition, but it isn't keeping pace with the appetite and the hunger that women are showing to get out of the traditional role models and work that they're doing. So we're spending a lot of time to encourage younger women, more girls to be out there. Also looking at finding mentors, for young women. So it's a complete circle, and but with a sense of equity, right? Because we're also very, very keen to ensure that the woman who is being mentored feels that she's an equal to the person who's mentoring her, right? It's just that the mentor brings a different life experience and a different skill set, and the young girl who's volunteering brings a very different life experience, and it's a relationship of mutuality. So I think the trend is, and there's a lot of conversations within us in the sector to look at volunteering as more equity driven, with more agency for who I call the recipient of the volunteering engagement, and the dynamic is actually one that needs to be more equal. The market values certain skills more than certain others, and that's what we're trying to challenge. So yeah, I think we're on to a good path, and we're hoping that we'll make quicker progress. I certainly am not a very patient human being, so I'm saying that let's get there quickly and as quickly as we can.
RT, thank you so much. It's great to hear what is driving people, and I love the connection that you're drawing between volunteering and valuing that, and the confidence that it builds for women. It's as a female leader and a mentor to others. It's confidence is one of the most important things I think we engender in younger women. But I also love that you brought up about kind of that power dynamic a little bit in mentoring, and being sensitive about that and the equity of that. A couple of things I've in my experience working in mentoring that I've enjoyed is the concept of peer mentoring. A couple of different ones. One is a peer mentor. I've also had a Gen Z mentor in multiple countries, young people that mentored me when I was a CEO of a international youth organization, and I needed to know what was going on the ground. So I needed mentors that could support me, and it was a mutual mentorship, because they wanted some of the wisdom, and I needed some of the currency. So there's more than one way to even look at mentors, and I wanted to bring that up as we transition to that part of our conversation. I've also really truly loved a peer mentoring model as a way to value that cohort nature that we've talked about here. The cohort, I think, Pam, you've talked about, the young people in your scholarship cohorts. RT's talked about the cohort of women, preparing for boards. That peer mentorship, I think, is sometimes not valued the same as what's considered a traditional mentoring relationship. So we have a lot of diversity in how we can support each other. So we know that mentors can be critical, and it's one of the areas that I'm very, very passionate about. I mentioned that I've had mentors across, up, down, and to the side. I've also just want to acknowledge the men that have been mentors and allies for me. I am a female nonprofit leader, and I would not be here today if it weren't for both male and female mentors who championed me and gave me opportunities to stretch and do things I'd never done before, but believed in me and supported me along the way. So I want to acknowledge that. And but I also know that there's sometimes a tendency to find a mentor who's similar to you, or who's had similar experience. I'm interested in your experience. I've shared a teeny bit of mine. about your experience about RT for you. How can a diverse mentor relationship help people thrive in new ways?
Okay, that needs another 1 hour webinar, Jennifer.
Correct.
but but I will keep it brief. So, like you, I some of my best mentors have been men, and for two reasons. I mean, some who've have been the wind under my wings, and some who've challenged me for every little thing that I've done. So I've been able to fight back. And that's really important. And I would look at that. You don't need a mentor who's a cheerleader all the time, right? Because you need somebody who will challenge you, who will push you to the point where you're really tearing your hair out. And you only appreciate it in retrospect, right? You don't really appreciate it when it's happening to you, right? Because you're like, why are you being so difficult, right? But I think for me, the most valuable mentors have been who've often told me not to play the victim, and not to sort of, feel sorry for myself and say, oh, I'm this woman, I didn't have things going the way that a man might have. And I've had mentors who've said, pull your socks up, that's done, do what you need to do now. And like you, I think young people, both with my children and other young people around me, they are very refreshing in the way that they think. They can be very frustrating too, to be honest, at times. But and that's, I'm not being ageist here at all, but I think the diversity that they bring with the freshness of thinking, the energy, the ability to sort of just take things in their stride very often, right, has been very, very heartwarming, and it's been a great learning experience. I think all of us, I think, continue to be mentored, some very consciously, and some that we don't even recognize as traditional mentoring. And I would encourage everybody who's here and everywhere else to seek people out who are different, who can challenge you, who can frustrate you, and also, of course, be your cheerleader. You need all kinds, but and all in equal measure. Because if you only have the cheerleading and the encouraging types, then I think there might be a tendency to get complacent, right? And so it's really important that you have people that are saying, okay, what you're doing is not good enough. It's not enough. You can do more and better.
RT, I couldn't agree with you more. That is absolutely what I was fortunate to have. And it actually is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And in my experience, it requires a relationship and trust. And it's easier not to change. To be honest, as a mentor, a friend, a supervisor, a partner, it's sometimes easier not to challenge. So one of the points of
Yeah.
view I've tried to take as someone who's had amazing mentors is really realize when it's tough and it's kind of hurtful sometimes, the feedback, that to understand that that's a huge gift, and they are not doing the easy road of just cheerleading, but they are doing the hard work of growth.
Yeah.
And I try to be very, the harder the feedback is, the more I try to lean in and appreciate it. For me
Yeah.
personally, that's what's helped
Yeah.
me grow. Well, Pam, I wanted to ask if you've had what your experience has been, or what, from your point of view, think makes an impactful mentor and mentee relationship.
Yeah, I go back to what you said about trust. I think that's so important, and authenticity is important as well. I view mentors as folks who you have relationships with, where you can share the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Because there is this trust. I intentionally seek out mentors who I view as my challenge network, because I want to hear things that I'm missing, and I'm not always looking for the amen corner. That's important for your confidence. But I want to know what I'm missing, right? And to challenge my thinking, I tell my team this. I said, If we're all thinking alike, then somebody is not thinking. And that's why I think it's so important so you could see what's coming around the corner. The peer mentor piece is very important too, I believe, Jennifer, that you mentioned. And I go back to when I was in law school, and I purposely seeked out diverse study groups. So I had one study group of all women. I had another study group of all people of color. And then I was in another study group with mainly white men because I wanted to know how they think. Because I knew that in the world of law, and I'm a CPA as well, in business, oftentimes we're going to be engaging with men. And so the best way to figure out how they're thinking is to be in a comfortable, trust-based environment where they can be themselves. And so I can really see, how they really feel. And it was the combination of all of those different groups, I think, helped me in terms of advancing in my career. And then one other thing I might mention in terms of male mentors, I have to go back to sixth grade, Jennifer. I hate to go back that, but it was only not too far away, not too long ago, right? And my sixth grade math teacher was Mr. Mathis. And Mr. Mathis told me that girls do math. And that just stayed in my brain. And so he would push me, he would give me additional projects and exercises, and he actually put me in that separate class so I could get more advanced math in sixth grade. So I ended up being that top math student. And going back to women and their confidence and competency around figures, it started with Mr. Mathis investing in me and saying girls do math. So I still continue to, and I didn't know in sixth grade that, say 25 plus years, right? I would be at Fidelity Investment, teaching other women they can do that math.
Oh my goodness, we're all so excited about Mr. Mathis, the math teacher, Mr. Mathis, the perfect name.
Yes.
But Pam, it's so inspiring. I'm getting choked up to think about what the seeds he planted in you that today you're expanding, you're using that comfort with numbers, with math through all of your career. And today we just heard you talk about the things you're championing for younger women. It's amazing, so inspiring. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I want to just make sure we leave a few minutes for our wonderful participants. I know some of them are having to hop off, but I want to make sure we make room for questions. I just want to do a couple quick wrap ups or things that I've heard from the conversation or that have truly inspired me. And really, I want to start from the setting that we're in. RT, I'm so glad you talked about the enthusiasm that you're seeing for women to engage. And we see it in what Pam's doing and what we're doing at Points of Light, that enthusiasm. So the ground is ready. We are ready for more, which is exciting. The NGO ecosystem, I loved hearing about, Pam, your concept of supporting organizations closest to the pain. And I think for those of us that are investing in NGOs or partnering or choosing even where to volunteer, I think that's a really good frame for us to think about as we think about the impact as women that we can have in the community. I also love the systemic, kind of talking about the systemic barriers, that equitable access and what happens when that happens. Pam, the story of the women, you open the scholarships and the natural course of events was that more women received the scholarships because it was an equitable playing field for applying for scholarships, which is very exciting. And then personally, I just want to thank you both for your inspiration. I love the the opportunities that you're creating, RT, in India for women on boards. That's it's so critical And Pam, I'm going to take away to build my challenge network. I love it. Something we all need. So thank you both for this amazing conversation. I'm going to open it up. We've got about 12 minutes left and would love to field any questions.
Yes, and we have some wonderful questions for our speakers. So we have a question on how you create inclusive spaces when you're an only, whether that is the only female, the only person of color. And similarly, we had a second question specifically about how Pam sourced and found her diverse study groups. So how do you create that space when you are an only in the situation?
So I can start off, and I think I can answer both with my same formula or mindset. I always remind people that R comes before T. Relationships before tasks. And that's how I start in terms of reaching out to people who don't look like me or being comfortable in situations where I'm the only. And even in law school, where there were very few black women in my year I was at Harvard Law School. So a lot of people who look much different than me. But it started off with relationships, and for it to work, you have to be authentic. So I never knew what would resonate with someone, right? And I said that it's too hard being someone else. So you have to be yourself. And through that, there were just things that came up that I had in common with others. It may have been that I was from Texas, right? Or I liked Mexican food, right? Or I wanted to learn how to ski. I'm in Boston now, and just talking about those things and developing that relationship and that trust first. And then we got to the T, the task. Because my task was in law school, I'm trying to pass these classes. So I need your help in these study groups. But R before T has completely worked for me, and it helps me to develop really, really strong relationships, and also getting to know people in the community as well. I may not be from the same communities as others, but there's probably something that we have a common affiliation around. And so then that gives you an opportunity to engage and to listen and learn, unlearn some things. I always say, listen, learn, and unlearn, because we all have these biases, and then move forward from that.
RT, did you want to answer that?
I just wanted to add, I love what Pam said, but I just wanted to add that for me, there is a step zero to what Pam is saying, and which is that just believe that your tribe is out there and they're waiting. I think that's the first step, and I've always found that it's worked. They're out there, they want you to be part of a larger community, and you just seek and you shall find. But the important thing is to believe in the goodness of human beings, and they're out there and they're waiting.
Right.
Fabulous.
That's a great one. Next question. This individual is curious about resources for women currently in the field looking for more support on a journey to executive leadership, and what resources have helped the three of you as you have transcended in your career to the executive suite.
Would one of you like to start?
I can start. Some of the work that RT is doing in terms of boards, I've been in some organizations as well that focused on preparing women for boards. And what I've learned, because in my current role, I can do nonprofit boards, but I cannot do for-profit boards, just because of the obvious, optics around conflicts. And so, but I've been involved in a lot of sessions where they're preparing women for boards, but it's really for leadership in the community. And it's also for going back to the connections, because I always say you never know who is going to be in a position to give you an opportunity. I was at a thing at the White House years ago, Jennifer, one of my law school friends was president at the time in the White House. So I got a chance to be at the White House. And I remember going there for an event, and it was raining. And I had a black raincoat, and there were about 400 other people there with black raincoats, right? And so there was this woman who was the coat check woman, an older black woman who took my coat. And I just exchanged a few words with her. I valued her as a person, not as someone taking my coat. And we just had a small chat. And then I went on to the party. And then when I came back, it was raining. I couldn't find my coat check ticket. Couldn't find it. I had thrown it in my bag, couldn't find it. And she saw me being frustrated just because I couldn't find it. And she asked me to come up to skip the line and come up. And she went right to my coat. Right to it, Jennifer.
Wow.
And I know what it was. It's because I took that R before T, and I took that time to value her. And she, without hesitation, she went right to my coat. And I remember my friend said to me, another friend from law school, she said, Pam, there are a lot of things that President Obama could have done for you today. But the one thing he could not have done was to find your black raincoat among the other 400. And so I just say you never know who will be in a position
That's right.
to help you, and treat everyone and value everyone, because you don't know who they are at the end of the day.
That's right. I just want to really quickly, I'm going to add really quickly one thing for the person who asked about how to kind of launch or get started in a career as a woman. And I want to just recognize that I had the opportunity, or took some opportunities early on, to learn from, to do some women in leadership trainings and some local things in my hometown in the Midwest. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, where I got to learn from and just watch just some classes of some women, groups of women that were working together on leadership development. And it wasn't expensive. I was able to do it myself. And it was such a seminal thing to hear how women thought, how women leaders thought. They were telling their stories. So I just want to encourage that it's never too early for you to seek out having that proximity to women who are leaders. And don't think, oh, that's for me later in my career. Never too early. Never too early. RT, did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so I think for me, I love what both of you said, but I also think that we sometimes miss out on learning from what's really around us and really very obvious. And so I just feel that if we pay attention to the women around us who are behaving with leadership, right? And recognize that very consciously and try and adopt and adapt it to what we're doing, that's easiest lesson number one. There's tons of stuff out there. I mean, there are videos and courses, and all of which are valuable and useful. But for me personally, I just think volunteering in a women-led organization very, very early on did it for me. I mean, I could see how she built the organization, the challenges that she faced, and how she fought them. And I think an easy way to do is to sign up to volunteer with a woman leader who is happy for you to shadow her in what she's doing.
Great, great. Well, I think with that, we're going to wrap up our webinar here today. What an inspiring conversation. You all are amazing. And I want to thank our participants for the great questions, the comments, the engagement. You've been wonderful today. So inspiring inclusion was our topic today, a conversation for International Women's Day. And I want to thank both of our panelists, Pam Everhart and RT Madhusian. Thank you so much for all you are doing in your communities. And thank you for being a part of this important conversation.
Thank you.
Jennifer,
bye-bye.
For your leadership and what you're doing with Points of Light.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.